I was watching the Summer Games Festival, and even though indie games blew it out of the park, as they always do, AAA games were very safe, predictable, boring. This hodgepodge of spiritless, focus-tested games seemed to be created to be liked by everyone, but loved by no one. This made me long for the era of video games where surprises were not limited to indie darlings, when AAA meant ambition and not just budget. What happened to this era of gaming of vision-based design? And are we ever going back to that? Spoiler alert, probably not. Let's find the answer to why AAA games have gone bad over the last decade, and then we can make a quick comparison to what aspects have changed. And finally, we're gonna take a trip back in time. Back when games were not just products, but personal statements. Kind of, it was still a team, but you know what I mean. But first, let me tell you a story. Part 1. Simpler times. When I was a kid, I got stuck in the prison cell segment of Metal Gear Solid 3 for about 6 months. Although thematically appropriate, it was obviously not intended to be experienced like that. The reason I found myself in this predicament was that my English was not so good. So I was not really getting the hints of a possible escape, and in the small Greek island where I grew up, internet was not really a thing. I know, hard to believe. So after trying everything under the sun to get out, even replaying the game multiple times from the beginning to reach the same point, hoping that it was some kind of bug, I still couldn't figure out how to get out of this damn cell. With my disappointment reaching heights I never thought possible, I started aimlessly spinning Snake in the menu out of pure frustration. This seemingly random action ended up being my salvation, because Naked Snake got motion sick from me spinning him and puked. Naked Snake got motion sick from me spinning him and puked. Just a normal day for a young boy, gentlemen. This prompted the guard to open the door and help me out. The sight of something different happening while I had exhausted any other recourse made me ecstatic. I quickly took out the guard and I was ready to escape this 6-month-long purgatory. Years later, I learned that there were multiple ways to escape, and of course there were some reasonable ways and some Hideo Kojima ways. And that latter part is the point. To make a section like that today feels almost impossible. Game testers would point out that there's no clear way forward, so the devs would probably add a voiceover of Snake suggesting an escape plan.
What about freezing the geyser under the wheel? Maybe?
And objective markers would point things out. You might have snake vision, because to have a player confused, it's forbidden in today's game design. The cell section and so many other segments from MGA's games require trust in the player. And of course, an insane amount of trust was placed in Hideo for him to express his idiosyncratic ideas. And while on the subject of creative decisions, this man, this beautiful man, he surely made a plenty. For example, having to change the controller ports on the PlayStation 1 console to be able to fight an opponent that is psychic and hence can read your moves. Or having Raiden kiss the photo of the girl in his locker.
Raiden, what are you doing there with that?
Or making the actual passage of time a tactic in which you can kill a boss because they're very close to old age. I am only scratching the surface because the Hideo Kojima mind gave us much more madness, absurdity, and stupidity than you can ever imagine. And we love it. Because it's his vision, because it's his stream of conscious, but on a colossal budget. Thankfully, he still has the capacity to do this, but this used to be so much more commonplace in the PS1 to PS3 era. We would get these unique AAA games based around the vision of a dictator. But we would get these unique AAA games based around the vision of a director. These games would play like nothing else. Like nothing else, big games, very strong games, the best game. So what happened? Part 2. Quick comparison. Let's have some fun. Let's compare modern AAA games with the equivalent ones from the previous era, and then we can answer the why. Innovation and polish. Imagine this. An open world game with cover mechanics, graphics that are trying to be realistic, and bloated and uninspiring mission design. No, I'm not trying to say Ubisoft, but with many more words. I was just trying to say Watch Dogs. If you barely remember Watch Dogs, then you missed out on the game that was gonna change open world games as we know it. Yes, once upon a time people were gullible enough to believe Ubisoft's promotional material. We were promised insane graphics and interaction like you've never seen before. Instead, we got this. Now contrast that with a game like Okami, and you can immediately see the passion spilling uncontrollably, like your mom when she sees me. Interesting game mechanics, unique visual style, amazing soundtrack. There's a reason that people still talk about this game till this day, almost 20 years later. Almost 20 years later. Fuck, I'm getting old. Not so old for your mom though. Music. Hey you, listen to this soundtrack from MGS2. Here we have Dead Crew, a strange, mysterious, tension-filled, techno-sounding track. It fits the game's themes of technology, information, and manipulation. And it sounds so different than most tracks you will hear in any AAA game from recent years. Wait, I just thought of something. Was this soundtrack the catalyst of me liking techno? So ChatGPT, did Metal Gear Solid 2 mold me as a person? What I love about this soundtrack, and to be honest, all soundtracks from Hideo Kojima games, is that you can feel the intention of the artist. You can hear how the music was constructed to enhance Kojima's vision. I mean, listen to this and notice the sound effects. In this track from MGS2 and this one from MGS3, you can hear how sound effects are used to make you feel like you're in jungle or are on a cold and industrial place. On the other hand, here's a song from Division 2. And let's not kid ourselves, this is by no means bad. But would you ever be able to tell it apart from any other third-person game soundtrack? Gameplay mechanics. When we were young, we used to play Halo, 4-player split screen. There's always that one guy that uses the energy sword and he camps and he just kills you and there's nothing you can do about it. And I remember us being stuck in this circle of evolving strategies where we would try to one-up him and he would try to adjust everything that we were doing. It felt like from that one single weapon, so many fan scenarios arose. Can you recall any weapon or mechanic from a recent Halo game, Assassin's Creed game, or Call of Duty game that gave you the same kind of experience? Probably not. The sad thing is probably that a game like Resistance had more creativity with its weapons than the last 10 years of third-person shooters. Oof. So what happened? Well, before, the games would take 1 to 3 years to be made. Now they take 5 to 7 years. Before we would have a dozen people working on a game. Now we have hundreds to thousands for a single game. Before the focus would be on gameplay mechanics. Now it's on realistic graphics. Before it used to be 10 to 50 million to make a game. Now it's around 100 to 300 million for a single game. Before you would have the wild west of game engines and hardware quirks. Today, so many games have consolidated and Unreal Engine is the #1 engine and is a quite buggy one to begin with. Of course, all these numbers are averages and they don't tell the full story, but they show us a clear trend. And the trend leads, unfortunately, only towards one direction. So what we see is that when games stay with a small group of developers, the focus is more on using bespoke hardware and a bespoke engine to create interesting mechanics. When the development cycle is 1 to 3 years, the vision stays clear and cohesive. Then what you get is that a small investment needs to be made for that game to come to fruition. If it's a small investment, then the risk that the publisher is taking is not as big. But on the other hand, when the focus is on amazing graphics, then you need a bigger team. You need more time to create assets for that game. The vision gets coerced by insanely long development cycles. And the investment risk is so much greater that the publisher needs to make sure that this game is as appealing as it can be to everyone, because they need to guarantee a return on investment. So while games are bigger than ever, more broken than ever, and more boring than ever, let's just use this beautiful thought as the impetus to go back in time to a time where games were great. Make games great. Part 3. Iconic game directors. It's hard to capture the impact that Shadow of the Colossus, Ico, and to a lesser extent The Last Guardian had on our perception of what gaming is and can be. When these games were released, their unique themes, music, and atmosphere separated them from any other game in the market, not just AAA space. Fumito Ueda's work consistently imprints a blend of sadness and hope. Give him budget and creative freedom to realize his vision, and you are left with a meditative experience. Storytelling that relies as much on your ability to feel as on your ability to think. Gameplay that is fine-tuned and stripped of excess, so it can serve the themes of the game. Pair that with otherworldly music, and what results are experiences that have never been replicated. I have a confession to make. Something was missing for me in the latest DMC game, and I feel like not many share that opinion. Before you disagree in the comments, let me make my ultra subjective point. Let's use DMC 3 as a reference. Devil May Cry 3 feels like Hideaki Itsuno Unchained. He was free to marry style, music, and action to his heart's content. It feels natural. You want to create a cool character, so he needs cool clothing, a cool way of fighting, cool music to accompany his actions, and of course, cool catchphrases. Jackpot. The latest games feel predictably like many cooks were in the kitchen, and they're all trying to imitate the chef's dishes. Even though the chef is still in the room, all the pieces seem to be there, but I feel like their inclusion was mostly a checkbox and not because they fitted a creative vision. And then you look at DMC 4, but especially DMC 3 to be honest, and suddenly the recipe is perfect. Is that all just nostalgia, or do you feel the same?
Are you crying?
It's only the rain.
The rain already stopped.
Who knows? Let's move on. Shinji Mikami, a man known for games like God Hand, Vanquish, Evil Within. A game that for some reason keeps invading my brain, but I digress. But what I would like to focus on is his most famous game, Resident Evil 4. Because on paper, this game shouldn't work. Try to put yourself in that era. This game brought new controls, it introduced a shift to action instead of pure survivor horror, it bolstered a lengthy runtime, the characters are weird.
Who are you?
Me llamo Ramon Salazar.
The lines are so cheesy, you want to use them for risotto.
Monsters. Guess after this, there'll be one less to worry about.
There's fan service.
I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
And it keeps changing and shifting the mood, but somehow it all just works, because it's all based around a coherent creative vision. There's so many steps along the way for an executive to say, nah, this will alienate some people, you should cut it out.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
So I'm gonna ask the same question. Would Resident Evil 4 ever be greenlit today with a AAA budget? The answer is almost certainly not. The best we can hope for is a remake, and we got that. How can a creator's style be so distinct that even with a relatively small pool of games, they manage to stand out and leave behind unforgettable experiences? Well, that's exactly what happened with Ken Levine. His work on System Shock, Bioshock Infinite, and most importantly, the original Bioshock, cemented his place in gaming history. Specifically, Bioshock is one of those rare titles so widely analyzed that you're more likely to have seen a video essay about it than actually played it. Few other games use the very language of games, the rules, the objectives, the invisible cage that the player accepts without question, to convey their themes.
Now, would you kindly find a crowbar or something?
As players, we rarely stop to ask why we're doing something. We just accept the objective. Sometimes, games let us believe we can resist those boundaries. But most of the time, we play along, like actors in a theater play. Levine takes that exact relationship, the player's obedience to the system, and flips it into a powerful commentary about control and manipulation. And while I was writing this section, I noticed something interesting. The directors I've mentioned for each section highlight a specific facet of what makes games great. Fumito Ueda shows the artistic side of games. Hideaki Tsuno demonstrates mechanical mastery and pure gameplay thrill. Shinji Mikami shows how you can melt ideas and mold them into something entirely new. And finally, Kev Levine's work represents the inevitable piece of media that comes to reference itself and give us that butterfly in our brains feeling.
And like a fire with a snap of his finger. Are you as good as my daddy, mister? Not if you don't visit.
Yes, of course. In Kevin Levine's section, I will use him as an excuse to zoom out and reflect on the video essay itself as it's taking form. But of course, let's not forget Hideo Kojima, who somehow merges all the above like he's collecting the infinity stones of game design.
This is how we'll rebuild our country.
To conclude, I'm not suggesting that the golden era of AAA gaming was flawless. I mean, we had plenty of awful games. And also, I'm not saying that modern AAA titles always play it safe. Rather, I believe that smaller development cycles and tighter budgets historically allowed for a clearer, more personal creative vision. Today's larger productions often lack that sense of character, as ideas get spread around teams and development cycles stretch and corrupt these ideas. The future might seem daunting, with AI and industry pressures steering us towards safer, less risky ideas. But our role as gamers and creators is to champion innovation wherever it exists, and celebrate the games that push boundaries. Because true artistry in gaming is born from passion, not resources. And that is what makes them timeless.
And that brings us to the end. I appreciate it if you made it all the way here, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye, my guy.